Twice the terror.
Welcome to Twice the Terror. I'm Ryan.
And I'm the Halloween candy you forgot in your pocket and washed clothes. Cat.
Now, are you like a Mr. Goodbar, or are you like something like quality? Like, what kind of candy are you, Cat?
I'm a Butterfinger.
Butterfinger.
That's never gonna get out. I like how when we first started this podcast, you know, we would be I was so timid, and I was like, oh, I'm Ryan, and I'm like, and I'm Cat, and now I'm just like
Just
starting
chaos.
every episode like, what's up?
Well, for anybody this is their first episode, welcome. But if you haven't seen the show, the way that it works is that we basically bring in topics every week. Kat and I discuss them. Sometimes we each bring in something to discuss, but basically it can be horror related, it can be real, it can be paranormal, it can be fake, it can be movies, it can be whatever we really want to talk about. And normally, this is the point where I would turn to Kat and go, Kat, what's our episode about today? But here's the deal, folks. A little behind the scenes. We're totally winging this episode. This is, as Kat put it earlier, this is our horror potpourri episode.
Yeah.
We're just kind of talking about whatever we want to talk about for, 30 minutes or so. We do have, I am going to say this, a little plug for a fellow podcast out there. We do have a cool episode out right now with a podcast called Horror Hour with the Hannahs.
Yes. It was so much fun. They were
so cool. Kat, why don't you explain? I've been rambling. Why don't you explain what
No,
we
you're good.
recorded with them?
So basically, the Hannahs, Matt and Hannah, were kind enough to invite us to review the film Saw with them. So that episode was great to record. I feel like every time I listen to their show, I always end up agreeing with them. And I don't mean to be that person like always agree.
Yeah.
But they do make a lot of the same points.
Oh,
that,
yeah. Definitely, I've been listening to their Malignant episode because Matt recommended. I made a lot of the same points Matt did, and Hannah was not a fan of Malignant. So it's been fascinating because Matt will say something, I'm like, yes, I agree. And then Hannah will say something, and I'm like, interesting take. Just because it's like, it's just like, not in a bad way, but just like, I love hearing the opposite point of view. And, that's what filmmaking and art and stuff is all about.
The episode that like really is like living rent free in my head from them is the Drag Me to Hell episode, because when they started talking about how like whether or not she deserves to go to hell, and I can't remember if it was Matt or Hannah, but one of them was like, she's a class traitor, and I was like, yeah. But that is genuinely a very great point of like the film. So
they're both fantastic people. We had so much fun recording with them. Go listen to their episode. Go listen to any of their episodes. But if you like our show and you haven't heard it, Horror Hour with the Hannahs, you can find it, I think, on Spotify and all the like the places you find
general streaming.
All your podcast stuff. Definitely
their show
check
is
it
fun.
out.
And their opinions are correct.
Yes, we had a blast talking about Saw with them. And coming up here soon, we will be having our quote-unquote Thanksgiving episode. I mean, as much as you can celebrate everybody just eating turkey. But we're going to do a fun episode with them coming up, so look forward to that. But we're just going to kind of ramble today for a little bit until we feel like we're good. And Kat has now been watching, after seeing Saw, re-seeing Saw. You, correct me if I'm wrong, you had never seen any of the other Saw films, right?
Yeah, so I know I'm a lot. Listen, okay, sorry, I banged my desk. I do watch.
That's how angry you are.
I'm so upset. I do listen. I watch a lot of horror films, right? But I'm a picky bitch. I'm gonna be completely forthright with this. I am a picky bitch. I don't really like a series. I don't like series films. If I make it to the third one in a series, that film series should be blessed to have my attention span. The series I've watched the longest has been Halloween, because I've obviously seen 1 through 5, and I watched Halloween H2O, which I don't even know why I fucking watched that, but I did. So I tend to like fall out with movies, and after hearing everyone talk about Saw and like, oh, but in the 7th one, and I'm sitting here, you guys you're so deep in the paint talking about this series, and I'm over here like, the fucking 7th one. I have been watching them because I have Shudder, and they're all on Shudder, so I've been watching them slowly but surely. I've been watching them at work, so of all places.
Yeah, which is hilarious to me, especially I don't know if we've ever talked about what you do, and I don't know if we want to say, but like, especially where you work, the fact that you just have horror films on in the background is hilarious to me. Do you have headphones in? How do you watch them while you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I have headphones in. I work at a bakery. So while I am making baptismal cakes and decorating your wedding tier cake and stuff like that, I'm sitting there. My ass is watching Saw. Not even Saw 3.
Well, okay, so you've now watched 2 and 3. All right,
Yes.
and I'm just curious. All right, you're now. How would you rank them in the first 3? Obviously, you haven't gone any further than that. So, what's your favorite of them? What's the least favorite you've seen?
Okay. This is hard because, and I wish now that I've seen the other ones and I have so many more opinions and stronger opinions about this, I wish I had said this while we were talking to the Hannos, but Jigsaw is if the 1994 crime bill got impregnated by Antonin Scalia. Like, this man has no concept of what constitutes a fucking crime. So the second movie, I would say the second movie is probably the one I like the most, just because I do like how people were saying, like, the way the house was designed. I do like the traps a little bit more in that one. I think the characters were a lot more interesting. There's a lot more tension with Donnie Wahlberg trying to get his son back, you know. I
Oh,
thought
by
that
the way,
was...
probably, because I'll probably bring up some movies here too, folks. Spoilers. Just,
For
just
days.
throwing it out there. We're probably just going to spoil stuff. I mean, Saw 2 is like 20 years old at this point.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, like me, then like fuck it. You were never going to watch it unless people yelled at you to watch it. So I was so frustrated. Like, yes, all these people are there for crimes that they committed. One guy was selling drugs. Yes, that is categorically a bad thing to do. Does that person deserve to be horrifically killed for that? I have feelings about it. But then you find out other people like shoplifted, and I'm like, these crimes are not equal.
One of these things is not like
the other. I'm waiting for them to say psych, come out with Saw 11, and at this point Jigsaw is just reaching for straws, where he's like, Charles, you killed a family of 5 while driving drunk on New Year's Eve.
Well, I mean, that's what happens in Saw 3.
Yeah, okay, but then right next to Charles is like, Steven, you borrowed a pencil in the 2nd grade, and you didn't return it. And Steven's like, actually...
And then the
no,
final montage
return
is
it.
Steven having flashbacks to like not having the pencil with dun 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 dun
No,
dun dun dun.
Steven's probably like, I returned the pencil, and Jigsaw is like, did you sharpen it? Like, so yeah, I was just like, what fucking moral compass are you using? And is it a potato with directions carved on it? Because this is fucking shit. So, yes, I do think the second one is good. I would say 2, 3, 1. In that order. Yeah, I don't hate the first one, really. I don't. I just actually no. I'm gonna
no
rewind.
Trust
Rewind
your
sound
instinct.
effect.
3 is a solid one. 3 is good. I mean, 3
Yeah.
is probably. I would honestly say, thinking back on all of them, 3 is probably the most brutal that the entire franchise ever gets. 3 is pretty intense. Like,
I swear to God, at the end when Jigsaw was like talking to that guy, and he's like, his final test was no hit backsies, and I was like, fuck you. Fuck that guy for trusting Jigsaw and thinking that, like, oh, if I kill him, nothing bad is gonna happen to me or my family. But Jigsaw's like, hey, I know I did all this shit, but like, please don't be mad.
Well, okay, so here's something I'm curious about. Because do you have any idea where the series goes from here?
Fuck no.
No? Okay, what's your prediction then? Because by the end of 3, Jigsaw's dead. Amanda's dead.
Allegedly.
So where do you think the series goes from here? What's your prediction for Saw 4 through 10?
Jigsaw forgot to turn off his stove before he left his house.
Oh shit! I forgot my stove. Dun 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 dun.
It inadvertently sets off a series of traps that now random people on the street have to solve. Okay, here's the question. Would you rather deal with a Jigsaw type killer, or would you rather be chased by like a Jason or a Leatherface type character? Like, would you rather a big dumb idiot who's violent, or would you have to think your way out of the situation?
Well, okay, so here's the thing is, are we talking about a specific slasher villain? Like, are we going like, because Jigsaw is very specific, but because there's different rules if it's different killers. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
If it's Jason, and we're talking about late series Jason, I would almost rather face Jigsaw, because Jason can teleport, and he don't give a fuck. But that being said, as long as you're not in Crystal Lake or apparently Manhattan, either of those two places, you're fine. Like, you don't, whereas...
Oh no, Pipper in Manhattan right now. Paranormal in Pennsylvania, look out.
Oh God, watch out for Jason. But the thing is, like, so on that hand, it's like, at least Jigsaw's morality is all skewed and messed up, but you at least have the option of surviving 90% of the time. I mean, there's some traps in Saw 3 that are unwinnable, but that's because Amanda set them up to be unwinnable, and Jigsaw's all like, no, that's not cool.
You're being a real wet blanket right now, Amanda.
You're harshing my buzz. But anyway, so yeah, I don't go because the thing about Jigsaw, if I'm in a Jigsaw trap, I know there's going to be some form of injury for me. That's just going to be horrific. But it also depends. I mean, like,
can you
what kind of
deduce a way out of it?
There's a trap in Saw 5 where basically people have to give so much blood, and so they have to like put their hands in a saw until it's like, filled up. I think it's Saw 5. It is Saw 5. Because I remember going to see it, and I saw it with a friend of mine. I saw it with a couple friends. But we were all talking about the traps. And one of my friends out of nowhere goes, I just would have pissed in the jar to fill it up.
How's he gonna know?
And I was like, that's a good point. He's not gonna know. Like,
when I was watching Saw 2 and that girl's like reaching for the syringe that's like in that thing, I was like, why didn't you just take one hand, open up the trap, and like,
yep.
beep,
I think, isn't she like there? That's when the gas is coming in or something, right?
Well, yeah, they've been slowly getting poisoned, and she was kind of
delirious.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that that is totally fair, because she's not really the one girl, the one blonde chick had died just from the sarin gas. So they were all kind of like, meh,
yeah.
While Xavier's like running around fucking full hog.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
that bash people's heads in.
Yeah, Saw 2, man, it's just, I think Saw 2 is the best for sure. It's just the perfect blend of everything. I think it's the most interesting in terms of like the twist to it, although the original twist is amazing, but like I think the twist is really great. I think that the characters are interesting. I like the idea of like the house, and I like the fact that the traps are more intricate, but they're not quite like as extreme as like, it's still stuff that like logically makes sense. It's not like in Saw 7 where there's like a blade on like a car driving toward like shit like that where you're like, what? But look forward to that.
in this house there are 7 feral cats, and we've duct taped razor blades to their backs.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say probably, God, I mean, that's such a tough call though, going back to the question you asked, because then again, like, is the slasher Freddy? Like, is it Freddy versus Jigsaw? Because if it's Freddy, then I'm screwed.
Let's say Jigsaw versus Leatherface. Let's go for that. Jigsaw versus Leatherface. Yeah,
I'd rather face off Leatherface then.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like there's ways to, based on all the movies, I think there's ways to like get to Leatherface in a way, like work with him. Now, if it's like Leatherface and the cook and the hitchhiker and it's like all the characters, I'm screwed. But if it's just
Yeah.
Leatherface, I feel like I can maybe like work with him to some degree. But if
Yeah.
it's Jigsaw, I mean, there's no working around that. You're in a trap and you're kind of you're going to be in some sort of bodily harm in some way.
At the end of it, and
Yeah.
if you survive the bodily harm after, and like the fact that he calls himself not a murderer, it's like, dude, go fuck yourself.
Right.
Like, eat ass, suck a dick. But
Well, so I watched, speaking of movies I just watched, and again, something Kat and I were talking about earlier, like, because we were having a long discussion before we started recording this episode, but we were talking about film and art and how art, as the Boulets like to say, and Dragula, like,
Yes.
you know, art, they always say that drag is art and art is subjective. Film is the same thing. Film is art, art is subjective. These are just our opinions. If you like a movie or you don't like a movie, like, have a conversation about it. We'd love to, you know, hear in the comments if you like a movie or don't like a movie. But, like, also at the same time, like, you know, there's no need to get angry or upset. People can talk. I watched a film that was super hyped up called The Outwaters. Have you heard of this movie?
no.
This is a movie that was being touted as the next Blair Witch movie.
That's a tough. That's a tall order.
It's a tough sell because I'm already a huge fan of Blair Witch.
Yeah,
and
but especially in 2023, I mean, like anyone can come out with a quote found footage movie these days.
And the problem, see, I don't want to spoil it, but I know how much you dislike Skinamarink, so I have a feeling a lot of people were comparing Outwaters to Skinamarink. So I don't think you're probably gonna want to sit down. Well, first of all, it's way too long. This movie, okay, set up the plot for anybody who hasn't seen The Outwaters. Again, movie was getting a lot of high praise. It's a movie about 4 people who go out into the middle of the Mojave Desert to shoot a music video. And basically crazy shit starts happening to them. I guess I won't say any more than that for anybody who does want to watch it. I will say it is... There is a... I don't know how to say this. I don't know how to describe this movie without spoiling it. Because there is a phrase that people have been describing it as comparable to. But I really strongly disagree. Not in terms of like a movie, but like a style or like something like that. And I strongly disagree with what people have been calling it. All right. Why don't we do this? Carol, I'll show you the trailer and you can tell me if you have any interest in seeing it. Because I won't spoil it if you do.
Here, trailers and clips.
I honestly don't even know what the trailer shows.
It's a bunch of clips of people going, like, driving out to the Mojave. And you get that voicemail of that girl being like, please call me back, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly it's just a bunch of flash cuts of really, like, shaky camera work and glitchy people covered in blood, something eating parts, it looks like. And then it's ending with the title. It says The Outwaters, and it's a 911 call. And someone being like, help us.
Great. You saw the movie. I saved you an hour and 50 minutes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the whole
Okay, here's the thing.
desert, bitch stacking rocks.
Spoilers for The Outwaters. I don't like spoiling movies for people who haven't seen them, but I feel like this is one that I want to save you. There is craft here. This is a movie with craft. I think they shot this film for like $15,000, and I totally respect that. I think there's some interesting concepts in this movie. I think there's some well-executed stuff. But I think this would have been better as a 20-minute short as opposed to an hour and 50 minutes long. Because people have been comparing this movie to Lovecraftian cosmic horror. I am somebody who's read a lot of Lovecraft. I'm not saying I'm an expert. No.
I didn't see a single tentacle.
There are tentacles in it when you can see them in the darkness. This film, the first...
You're in the desert. Why you got tentacles, bitch?
The first hour of this movie is people that are just, there's just shots of people it's just people talking, like, and you're supposed to, like, I guess, like the characters, but I don't know them well enough to care about any of them. Like, there's no bonds formed. I don't get them. I kept getting the two guys in the movies mixed up because they're both like two white guys with beards. So I was like, wait, which guy are we? Who has the camera right now? Like, I don't know. And there's like a lot of just like nothingness. There's stuff that like they keep beating over the head, like this one girl's mom died, and they keep telling you that over and over and over again. And Shannon and I kept expecting it to pay off. And I guess theoretically you could say it kind of does because it's a movie about like being reborn between like realms and stuff, but it really doesn't. Like that type of stuff. And I know there's gonna be people out there that analyze this movie and are like, but it does. If the meaning of her mother being dead. And I'm like, I get it. I understand. I'm glad that people like it. But for me, it was an hour of people I didn't really have any connection to or care about or were developed enough for me to care. And then out of nowhere, there is a shadowy figure with a hatchet that we pretty much figured out is one of the characters. He murders everybody, and then the rest of the like 50 minutes of the movie is this guy with a camera apparently going through like dimensions and just like time loop stuff. And so it'll be like, and he's got the worst flashlight in the world, which is no joke. If you have an entire, 16:9 frame, like this, you know what? Here, like this small is all you can see of the film. It's like dead center, a pinhole, and that's all they show you of stuff. So like there's moments where he runs into like a big creature, and it's like, I get the idea of not showing stuff is scary, but when you've got a shaky cam and I already can't see because it's this much, I'm not scared, I'm frustrated. And the film doesn't explain anything. It's like there's elements of stuff that like could be interpreted, but it's like a lot of like he'll jump into a time loop and he's covered in blood after he got attacked by, later on what he finds out is himself, which is pretty obvious in the movie. And then like he'll run into like characters who are already dead, and like tentacles will come out of nowhere and attack them, but like they're very clearly like nylon stockings on a string. Like,
they're giving it the old Ed Wood special.
Yeah, especially in the daytime. At night they look better, but then like there's a lot of like quote unquote jump scare elements of like sound design where it'll be really quiet and then all of a sudden it's like the time warp opens or whatever and it's like a screeching noise. The same kind of stuff. I haven't seen Skinamarink, but I've heard that Skinamarink does the exact same crap where it's just like suddenly like loud noise, isn't that scary? And it's like, no. But that's this movie in a nutshell. You'll see a bright flashing light. Suddenly he's surrounded by red liquid, and then he's like peeling his skin off, and then he's like, oh, and he's like running through the desert. I almost never do this with movies. I literally had a moment where we paused the movie so I could get up, and I went, there's 30 more minutes of this movie? How? How is there 30 more minutes of this movie? Nothing is happening.
That was Shane during Skinamarink.
Yeah.
Shane, okay, this is no longer potpourri. This is an airing of grievances. Is what's happening here. No. Well, I promise we'll talk about other things. I swear. But when we watched Skinamarink, and there was the whole movie just fucking annoyed the shit out of me because the entire film is shot. You see more of a ceiling light than anything. It's just it's like a fucking overhead light and children's feet and things disappear and then kids whisper about it. I don't fucking know. So at one point, I'm so fucking tired. I think it was Halloween. I think it was on Halloween we watched this. And we had just passed out candy to kids. I'm fucking tired. Also, I dressed up as a Canadian for Halloween, so I drank like a 6-pack of Molson's. I was like, So I'm sitting there trying to watch this movie. It wasn't a whole 6-pack. I'm not that brave. I think I got maybe 3 in me, but still. I'm sitting there, I'm so fucking, I'm tired, I'm drunk, we're trying to watch this movie, and then there's this shot, a really bad shot of a toilet, and the toilet disappears, and you get some little kid being like, I wonder what happened, and then you see a bucket get pushed into where the toilet was, and you're like, this'll have to do, and I was like, oh my god, and just rolled over and fell asleep.
Here's the thing about both of these types of movies, right? Again, I haven't seen Skinamarink. Kat hasn't seen The Outwaters. But I will say, they're both films that are trying to evoke feeling more than they are tell a story, which is great. Yeah. We need movies like that. But the problem is, So apparently the guy that made Skinamarink also made a short film that Skinamarink was based on, and it was like 20 minutes long. And people say it's incredibly effective because it's invoking a feeling, and it's unsettling because of how it's shot. It's analog horror. It's that sort of thing where it's that same thing where you linger on a shot too long and it becomes unnerving, right? Because we understand the rhythm of how things are supposed to be cut, so that makes it unnerving. And I appreciate that. But when you do that for 2 hours in a movie, it really outstays its welcome really quick. And there are some times where less is more. And like, in case anybody like is like, they just don't like artsy films or things like that, a film like Eraserhead is incredibly unsettling to me. And that's also a film without a structured narrative. It's a lot about evoking emotion and like all that stuff. But it is very unsettling because of its themes underlying it, and there is stuff that happens in it. When you show me a shot of a ceiling for 5 minutes, or you show a pinhole size image, and I'm supposed to be unsettled. I feel like a cat
watching a laser beam on a fucking wall.
Like, that's frustrating as a viewer, when I can also see that there's talent behind this. Like, and again, this is our opinion. Yeah. Some people may love this, and that's fine. But like, when there's talent behind stuff, I feel like it's even more frustrating when somebody like, because here's the other thing. I can forgive not having a plot, or not making sense, or even not showing a whole lot, things like that, if it makes me creeped out. Like, if I'm truly unsettled or disturbed by something, I will forgive it. I was not once unsettled during The Outwaters. Like, not once. There was never a moment that any of the scares worked on me. None of the, like, camera shots or, like, what I was supposed to be afraid of. I was so frustrated watching the film that I was never, ever scared. I was never once unnerved or unsettled or scared or anything. And I love ambiguous movies. Like,
Right.
You know, again, we talk about it. We talked about it in our favorite horror movies. Like, I love The Blair Witch. And that's a film for years, and I totally get it because now I'm on the opposite side of the fence. But that's a film for years where I've heard people who don't like that movie are like, it's people doing nothing happens, and nothing's ever explained. And that's the movie. And I totally get that opinion, and that is a totally valid, every opinion is valid. But there is a lot more going on in The Blair Witch that's actually a plot. There are, we get to points with characters.
They're explaining lore in the area. Like, you know who the characters are.
And it's got the suggestion of time loop stuff. Like, are they locked in a time loop, or are they just lost? Like, you know, there are ways to do that same thing that, like, and you end with an ambiguous ending. Do you want to know how The Outwaters ends, Kat? Are you curious? Do you want to hear it? Really? Because I'll spoil it if you want me to.
Go for it.
Okay. It ends with him finding out that, yes, he's murdered his friends. His friends' heads are all on pikes, like on sticks. And then he finds like a sharp piece of glass or animal tooth. He castrates himself and then cuts his stomach open and crawls around with his intestines hanging out and just looks up to the sky. And that's the end. Yeah.
So, what I'm hearing is this film is about people who went on a bad acid trip.
That would make more sense. I would watch that movie.
That movie would have had a fucking plot. Have you ever seen the movie Shrooms?
I haven't seen Shrooms, but yes, okay. I've heard of Shrooms, yeah.
Yeah, it's an Irish film, and it's kind of like the premise is like people took drugs and they got a little too fucked up. Mm-hmm. But I had mentioned this earlier before we started recording, but as a creator in any way, the worst crime you could commit is being boring.
Yep.
As an artist, boring is for civil engineers, not for filmmakers. Like, dude, what are you doing?
And obviously, we're talking about two films that are very divisive. That's what I'm looking for. There are people that love Skinamarink. There are people that loved The Outwaters. You know, and like, I always love when I can talk with somebody who likes that, you know, something I don't, and they can inform me or change my mind on it. Like, but from a first sitting of this movie, I was like, I don't. And then apparently to like bookend things, the filmmaker also released a short prequel and a short sequel. Like, they're things that are supposed to fill in gaps. One of them is so it's like it takes place over memory cards, like camera memory cards, so they'll say like camera, or they'll say card 1, and then it's like all the footage from card 1, card 2, which is a great idea. So apparently the first one is like another card that they found as evidence or whatever, and then the second half is like recovered data, right? So it's more stuff that's supposed to be happening in the time loop. And I was like, okay, after Shannon and I, my wife and I watched it, I was like, we were both kind of like frustrated with it. Frustrated because we saw the potential, but also frustrated because we were bored after almost 2 hours of this movie. And I was like, okay, if they're short, maybe I'll watch these. Maybe there's something more to it.
This episode with a guest appearance by my husband.
What?
Hi, Shane.
Hi, Shane.
Oh,
Do you want to tell everyone how you felt about skinamarink?
skinamarink. Yeah, I absolutely hated it. It's real bad.
Don't worry, I can blur
Real
Shane's
dry.
face
Fell
if he
asleep.
wants.
I wish that Shane did do like a podcast where it was him just reviewing things, because it would be a 2-minute podcast of Shane being like, yeah, no, it wasn't good. And he was done. There's more intro music than there is review.
So anyway, I kind of looked up these, and because I was curious, so I looked up the running time of them. Total for both those extras, it was an extra 50 minutes that I would have had to sit down and watch. And I was like, I can't do it. I can't watch 3 hours almost of this movie. Like, I just...
Of a fucking door jam.
Yeah, and it's like, I can't. And I'm someone, the thing that drives me crazy is, like I said, people kept comparing this to, it's Lovecraftian, it's cosmic, you're not supposed to see things. See, the idea is, they shot it through this pinhole because now, we are like a Lovecraft story where humans can't comprehend it, so they shot it so you can't see it. And I was like, that's not how Lovecraft is written. The reason Lovecraft is so hard so many times to put on film is because his characters can't comprehend it. We as the reader are there to conjure the things that are the most horrific things that we can think of. When you go to put that on film, everyone's going to have a different view of that, right? So like, not everyone's going to get scared by the same things. That's why his more grounded stuff, grounded in quotes, like Reanimator, or a short story that's like a few paragraphs, like From Beyond, which they turned and expanded into movie. Stuff like that works better because you can either go so vague with it that it works, or you can expand on it and have a good time. But like, when you keep comparing a filmmaker being like, well, he didn't show us because it was through a pinhole because it was cosmic horror, it's like, that's not effective.
No, sweetie, he shot a movie for $15,000. That's why you don't see a monster baby. Okay,
right. Because
be
it
real.
was easier to shoot with the worst flashlight ever imaginable. And the thing is, again, I felt bad because I kept comparing it to Blair Witch because everybody else did. But there are scenes in Blair Witch where you don't see anything, and they're horrifying. The scene where they're running out through that tent, and Heather goes, "Oh my God, what the fuck is that?" And it's like something she's looking at in the distance, and you don't see it. Like. Yeah. That's fine because we can see what's happening in the shot, which is them running for their lives. We see Heather look at something, it's frightening, and it's them hiding in the darkness. That's scary, that's unsettling, and that's the same concept. But it's not like they took like a piece of black fabric and had a pinhole this big and are running like this, and you hear somebody go, "What the fuck is that?" That's not effective. That's not effective filmmaking, in my opinion.
In my opinion.
IMHO. But yes, this is, I guess, us talking about movies that didn't work. That being said, I did watch some movies recently that I thought were better than I expected. Did we? I know we talked about this a little bit off mic with the Hannahs, but did you see Megan?
I have not seen Megan. I keep seeing I think the premise is what, a robot girl that kills people?
Yeah, it is. It's basically an AI, artificial intelligent doll, And I saw all the trailers for that movie, and I was like, I am not the audience for this movie. Like, they very clearly were going after a younger generation. The movie was PG-13. It was very, like, TikTok influencer-y, where it's like, everyone's doing the Megan dance, and everyone's quoting Megan. Like, I was like, this movie isn't for me, right? This isn't for me. But I was watching stuff on Prime Video, and it was on there. And they had the unrated cut, which I heard was like kind of the original cut of the movie before they cut it down to a PG-13. And I was like, this movie got really good reviews. I was shocked how good. All the reviews were really solid. I was like, let me give this a shot. It was surprisingly good. Like, there's way more depth to it than I thought. Like some of the stuff in the movie is really tragic and like kind of pulls at your heartstrings. It is a social satire. Some of that works, some of it's a little heavy-handed, you know, it's like about this toy company and stuff, so it's kind of like, isn't marketing to kids bad? And it's like, yes, okay, it's a little heavy-handed. Some of the jokes don't land, but some of it really does. Like some of it's really funny, some of it's not. The unrated cut was surprisingly brutal at times. I wouldn't call it like a hyper-violent movie, but there were moments where I was like, oh, I'm shocked they went that far. And all that like influencer social media stuff that I thought was going to be such a big part of the movie was in there for like a few minutes. Like she dances at one point. Basically anything you saw in the trailer that was like social media stuff.
That was
like,
all the social media in the whole film.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Surprisingly good. Like for a killer doll movie, you know, like a technological killer doll movie. I was shocked. Because that was the same day I watched. And I think we'll talk. We just literally talked about this in depth, so I think I'll save this topic for another episode. But it was the same day I watched Terrifier, Terrifier 2, and Megan all in the same day. And they were 3 films I expected to hate, and they were 3 films I actually ended up really enjoying. So I love when that happens, when you can watch a movie and be like, this is like fantastic. This, you know,
just back to back good movies.
Yeah,
that's such a gift. What a gift. I watched Ginger Snaps 2 for the first time in a long. So Ginger Snaps, actually, I would like to retcon our Halloween movies episode because your favorite spooky whore forgot how much she loves the movie Ginger Snaps. And I watched 1 and 2. Actually watched 1, 2, and 3. The third one's a little weird. But that's its own thing. The third one is always the fucking oddball in the group. I swear to God, it's the middle child thing or something. Like it's always the one that gets weird. But I really enjoy the Ginger Snap series, and I really wish that we had more movies kind of like that. More. I guess I just mean werewolf movies, really.
Sure.
Per se.
I mean, as on record, you are a big fan of Cursed. So.
I am. I do. I love werewolves. I pretty much will go for any werewolf movie. Not sure why. But the thing that I really liked about Ginger Snaps too was that ultimately the villain is. I don't want to. I guess have you seen anything Ginger Snaps?
I've seen the first one. I think the first one's really, really good. But I haven't seen anything past that. So
I don't want to spoil the second one for you then, because if you get a chance to see it, I do recommend it. But ultimately the villain, you get red herringed, and there's a lot of. I love a villain that's evil to be evil, and it's not necessarily that they had like some tragic backstory or anything like that. I love it when a villain's just a little fucked up, and it has a great example of that, of just like this person's just built different. So good twist ending, kind of a little bit of a nihilistic ending.
The first one has a pretty nihilistic ending though, so
yeah. And that's the thing too, is I really don't. Surprisingly, I love those movies, but I generally do not like movies that have nihilistic endings. And that's kind of my problem right now with watching the Saw series, where it's like, I see the setup for the... Yeah, it's just like a nonstop shit fest. Like, can someone catch a fucking break here?
I agree. I mean, the Saw films are like, I have a soft spot for them because I've grown up watching them and stuff. And
right.
But they're definitely like, there's moods you have to be in to watch Saw, because it's like if you're just like in a mood for something like fun, or even like a fun horror movie or something, like Saw's not gonna do it. Saw's gonna make you just be like kind of miserable and kind of just like.
Saw's a good movie for when you're already in a mood to punch a hole in a wall and you're just like, yeah, burn it all.
Yeah, pretty much. So a few recommendations, a few movies that were kind of like both iffy on, but you know what? Tell us if you liked Skinamarink or The Outwaters. Leave a comment. Tell us, did you enjoy them? And tell us why. Because we're not here and
show your work.
Yeah. We're not here to take away any enjoyment from it. Just because we disliked something doesn't mean you have to. So that's the great thing about art. Well, folks, I mean, we just kind of rambled for this episode. You know, we got our movie grievances out of the way. We talked about the Saw franchise. I mean,
we did.
let us know what you think of this episode. I mean, we had fun recording it because we just like hanging out. But if
Really?
you're like, the fuck, go back to like written shit, like or like go back to prompts and stuff. Like we'll do
Pretty
it.
much.
But if you like
We will.
this, let us know. I mean, we're happy to do more stuff like this too. But Kat, do you want to close us out?
Yeah, on behalf of Art the Clown, Jigsaw, you raggedy bitch. Listen, this is a personal threat to Jigsaw. If you fucking try your shit with me, if you try your shit with me, it ain't gonna work. You can't break what's already broken, motherfucker. Okay? So we'll see you guys next time.
Until next time, everyone.
The music killed me.